I love innovation and venture. I love when people innovate on the 5 partners with the $300, $400 million fund, making 2 investments a year, sitting on 12 boards. God bless Benchmark. Bill Gurley's my guy. Fred Wilson's my guy. Yeah. They're great at what they do. They're the GOATs. But then, sometimes the game changes and you get like a Steph Curry coming in and it's like, you know what? I'm going to stand 4 feet behind the 3-pointer and I'm going to shoot, 20 or 30 3-pointers a game and I'm going to hit 10 of them, 12 of them. So stop me. And Klay Thompson might hit 10 in a quarter. All of a sudden the game's changed. It's like, well, wait a second. This is a different style of basketball.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Lemon.io. Need to speed up your product development without draining your budget? Hire vetted engineers from Europe at Lemon.io. Go to lemon.io/twist to get 15% off for the first 4 weeks. OpenPhone brings your team's business calls, texts, and contacts into one delightful app that works anywhere. Get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/twist. And Veed makes it super easy for anyone, yes you, to create great video. Filled with amazing features like templates, auto subtitles, text formatting, auto resizing, a full suite of AI tools, and much more, Veed gives you the tools to engage your audience on any platform. Head to Veed.io to start creating incredible video content in minutes.
All right, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Everybody loved producer Nick reading the news last week. He wasn't on camera, but we had a bunch of breaking news and didn't have time to get a newsreader in here. So I said, hey, producer Nick, read the news. And you know what? After a couple of years of doing This Week in Startups, feel like you got a handle on the news and writing show notes for 4 years?
Show notes, yes. Presenting the show notes, no. I have no idea what I'm doing. So everybody strap in and come along for the ride. This is my parents' basement. I have moved out of Hoboken. My house is not built yet. So I am actually coming to you live from my parents' basement. This is true.
Literally a millennial trope. I'm working from my mom's basement. All right, so here we go. We have a couple of stories on tap today. I know the Microsoft Activision case. We had that breaking news this morning that Lina Khan has lost again.
Yes.
And what else is on the docket? Just to give people a little preview.
Yeah, so I think first up, I just want to get your thoughts on a story that I think is a really big deal, and it seems like nobody is talking about, which is the using GPU access as leverage to invest in companies, which is happening a lot right now, it seems like, or in 2 cases, 2 very big cases, it's happening. And then after that, we're going to talk about, like you said, Microsoft. So there's 2 things with Microsoft. Great news. They basically beat the FTC case. They beat the case for the Activision deal. And then bad news, they're facing an EU antitrust probe over how it bundles teams.
Bundling. Yep. Yeah, we'll get into that. Okay, so let's start with this first one. I think this is a fascinating insight that you found writing the notes for the all-in, weekly docket and for the weekly AI roundtable that we do with Sunny and Vinny. So cue this up here. I'm interested in your observation.
Yeah. So for anyone listening to this that didn't listen to yesterday's episode, Jason and Sunny covered Inflection AI, who raised $1.3 billion at a $4 billion valuation, and a 22,000 GPU supercomputer or cluster that they're putting together. But I think that there's like a little bit more meat on the bone of the story. So obviously in tech right now across startups, there's a massive GPU shortage. There's a ton of startups looking to integrate AI applications and do it themselves, but they don't have access to these GPUs either in the cloud or on-prem, right? Because you can't buy these NVIDIA GPUs. You can rent them out for really, really expensive, but that's basically what's going on, right? Would you say that was accurate?
Yeah. I mean, if you are going to try to do your own language model, you want to do stuff at scale, you need to have, thousands of these apparently. And that means $100 million to a $250 million ticket to get started if you want to do your own language model, which it seems like a lot of startups want to do.
So as you talked about yesterday with Sunny, this round was led by Microsoft, Nvidia, Reid Hoffman, who's also a co-founder, Bill Gates, and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. And you guys talked about the round tripping potential on yesterday's show. And I'm wondering if this kind of falls into that basket or it's something a little bit different. So Nvidia, seemingly as part of this investment, but this hasn't been confirmed anywhere, at least that I've read, is going to help Inflection install more than 18,000 Nvidia H100 GPUs. The H100 is basically the top of the line GPU right now. It's the most expensive one. It's the one everybody wants. Inflection already has 3,500 of them currently in use. So this would give them 22,000, as we said. The company said this is going to be the largest AI-specific GPU cluster in the world, which is pretty crazy. Some other large clusters, Meta has a 16,000 cluster. Microsoft said they're adding tens of thousands of them soon. But it seems like Nvidia might be using the GPU shortage and its position in the market as leverage to take ownership positions in startups.
Okay. So is there an example of this?
Yeah. Inflection.
Oh, okay. So I thought there was a second example. So
I have a couple after, but yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, I mean, there is a phrase in Silicon Valley, no conflict, no interest. And so if there is a chance to press your advantage as an investor, or as a business, you're going to take it, right? So Apple, as one example, has a lot of iPhones, and those iPhones have a search box. And they need to give people search results when you're using Safari. They sold that to Google, and they make something like $20 billion a year just off of that franchise. And so that's but one example of, two people who might be considered conflicted, right? Android competes with iOS, and, tons of different products compete between those two, but they found some common ground here. Google wants to maintain their monopolist position in search. Apple wants to make a ton of money, so Apple didn't launch a search engine or do a deal with DuckDuckGo or Bing. And then, of course, you have here Microsoft saying, hey, we would like to back Inflection, even though they're put $10 billion into OpenAI. So that's conflicted. So there's always conflicts. And if you can find leverage, and GPUs could be leverage or access to them. Now, we don't know here if Inflection is waiting in line with everybody else, or if they got to jump the line, but all's fair in love and war, all's fair in startups and investing. No conflict, no interest. So people have all kinds of conflicts. The partners at YC, we've talked about this on the show many times. Partners at YC get first look, and the insiders get first look at the startups there because they come and they mentor them early, and they've got their own network. The top 10% of startups at YC are swept off the table. If you go to demo day, you're going to see like the 80% or 90% that weren't taken by the insiders for funding. So you just have to always keep that in mind. People are angle shooting, as we say in poker, and this is an angle shot. Yeah, sure. We'll get you to the front of the list. We don't know that that's happening, but you can assume that they're going to have preferred treatment because Nvidia has got a stake in this company. Yeah.
Big stake too, right? It's a $1.3 billion investment. They're part of the lead, probably a couple $100 million, you would imagine.
Guess, yeah. And then the round tripping, all of this is massively conflicted. You have many conflicts going on here at once, and that makes for very interesting business.
Do you think it's enough for an anti-competitive case against them?
The government gets involved in antitrust, and this will dovetail with the Lina Khan story coming up, typically in a very narrow set of circumstances, consumer harm being the number one vector that people look at, the number one lens or framing they look at. So is there some consumer harm here? No. Now, are shareholders getting harmed? Or is there some allegiance between OpenAI and Inflection that Microsoft should have, be loyal to OpenAI and not Inflection? Okay, maybe. That would be something Sam and Greg could bring up with Satya Nadella and say, hey, why are you doing this? These guys are competing with us. That's not cool. But Masayoshi-san was investing in Uber competitors around the world, and I think he pretty famously invested in DoorDash and was like, that's not competitive with Uber Eats. So, no conflict, no interest. And so it's just massively conflicted, but it's not a legal issue. It's an issue between partners. And then for Nvidia, they're an arms dealer. So when you're an arms dealer, like the United States is, we give our Patriot missiles to any number of people. Those people could get in conflicts with each other, and we could be replenishing their missiles and be on both sides of a conflict potentially. When you're an arms dealer, you're an arms dealer. You just want to sell weapons.
Right. So this is
Nvidia is an arms dealer. Okay, listen, you got an idea for a tech startup. Great. You think you want to change the world. You think you got this. This is the one. Well, you've got that same problem that we all do. You don't have an engineer, or you don't have enough engineers to make this happen. And you need product velocity. You need to go fast. And how are you going to go fast? And how are you going to control your burn rate if you got no engineers? Well, what if you had a partner who could provide you with more than 1,000 on-demand developers? And those developers were all vetted, experienced, result-oriented, and passionate about startups and building great products. Well, what if they also charge competitive rates? Does this all sound too good to be true? I know it does. Well, then you need to head to lemon.io because your dreams have come true right now. Startups, choose lemon.io because they only offer hand-picked developers with 3 or more years of experience and ones that have strong portfolios. Only 1% of candidates who apply to work at lemon.io actually get accepted. And if anything goes wrong, Lemon will get you a replacement ASAP. A couple of great launch founders have worked with lemon.io, people in our portfolio, and they have had great experiences. So I want you to learn more at lemon.io/twist. And when you go there, you're going to find your perfect developer or an entire tech team. And you're going to do that in 48 hours or less. And Twist listeners get 15% off the first 4 weeks. I want you to stop burning money. I want you to hire developers smarter and faster. Visit lemon.io/twist and give it a shot.
Yeah. Nvidia's has made a couple of investments in recent AI startups, actually. They invested in Runway, which we had the founder on the podcast, suite of generative AI editing tools. Cohere, whose founder is going to come on the podcast. They're basically building like a B2B LLM and a couple more AI startups. One of them is called CoreWeave. Have you heard of this company?
No.
Okay, so
educate me and the audience.
CoreWeave is interesting. They are the company that's actually helping Inflection deploy these 18,000 GPUs. They started as an Ethereum mining company back in 2017. So this is like a genius pivot. They put together this big cluster of GPUs to mine Ethereum when crypto was going like this. And then at some point over the past few years when it started to go like this, they pivoted from crypto mining to basically being a GPU cloud provider. So if you go on their website, you can look at, they have all the Nvidia GPUs ranked like this, and the top ones are the most expensive, and you can rent them on an hourly basis. It's like such a great business. Yeah.
If you think about what crypto did really well, it was build infrastructure and build these federated or, networks of computers, peer-to-peer architecture, just like Napster did previously, or Scour. Travis's first company before Red Swoosh, et cetera. So CDNs and peer-to-peer, Kazaa, Skype was peer-to-peer. All that stuff is kind of in the same wheelhouse, which is how do you take a job and put it out across a large network? And that's what GPUs do, or Tesla's supercomputer that they've built is doing. So this is a really great pivot, obviously. And we're seeing that across the board. I think if you're a crypto person and you don't consider pivoting right now to AI, and you've got like a really great tech team, kind of crazy because consumers and businesses were open to hearing about crypto solutions, right? Everybody was like, okay, yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about NFTs. Tell me more about blockchain. Tell me more about permissionless, currencies, tokens. And people heard it and were like, too complicated, not enough value for the end user, whether it's a business or a consumer. Now you juxtapose that with AI. I don't know if you saw the link I shared with the sales team using ChatGPT 4 and producer Brian was, giving them some advice on how to look up potential sponsors. I won't say what the thread was, but producer Brian on the media side of our business was telling the sales team, hey, look, here, I made you a thread of how to get all the sponsors of other events. So when you sell sponsorships for the All-In Summit, here are some people who sponsored other events, and it put it in a table for them, really nice and clean. So I think that is why, people are falling in love with these language models and tools so quickly, is that they just make you faster at your job. And it takes out I find it takes out the most arduous, repetitive, boring parts of your job.
Sifting through Google links.
Yes. Formatting stuff into a table, tagging a blog post, whatever it is, doing some basic research, and it's getting better and better. So if it gets 30% better a year, which I think is a pretty low benchmark, man, as I've said, hiring freeze across the board. We're 19 people in our company, and I feel like we're doing more work than when we were 23 or 24 people.
Yes.
And this is going to be what rebounds the entire economy, not to go on a total tangent, but if people are concerned about earnings, as I said on the All-In podcast many times, and I got a little bit of pushback on this, I kept saying if your revenue goes down, if you cut your spend, you can actually keep your earnings the same or better.
That's math, baby.
It's just basic math. And, I think Chamath was like, yeah, that's not easy to do. And I was like, it's not easy to do, but you can do it. And then all of a sudden, Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, Google layoffs happen. And you're like, wow, they took the medicine fast. And I think that was all CFOs and founders just saying, you know what? I don't want my stock price to crash. I want to have good earnings. And so who cares if we cut 10 or 20,000 people, if we have 80 or 100,000, it doesn't make any difference.
And also in Google and Meta's case, those 10, 20, whatever thousand people they cut were probably recently hired.
Yes.
Because they doubled their headcount or maybe not recently hired, but they were
last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over COVID, basically. Yeah. And so they probably hadn't even onboarded them and gotten them, hitting their stride yet. So It was like,
if you have never been into an office, did you even work for the company?
That is a pretty interesting angle. So
that's a joke. Don't yell at me, remote work people.
I mean, if you want to get people riled up, you could say remote work is BS.
Yeah, you're really into that right now. You go all over that space.
I just have come to the conclusion that 20% of people are more productive at home. 50% of people are less productive. And then 30% are probably as productive. Maybe 25% are as productive. I think, generally speaking, does that track with your experience?
Yes.
If you had to put people into buckets, maybe it'd be a third, and a third. But
I can't ever imagine how a company of hundreds or more people runs fully remote.
Yeah, it's just.
I'm sure that there are some that do it and do it well, but I can never. I think for smaller teams, it can work, especially if you have like seasoned people that know what they're doing, that know what they have to do. But for training and onboarding and things like that, it is really hard.
I'm worried about the psychological impact this is having on people, especially young people who don't get to build relationships. And then if you are home all day and then you don't go out at night and you stay home at night, which is pretty easy to do with, ordering a DoorDash and, watching whatever's on Netflix or HBO Max, like people get weird. And so I think the big issue is it was too onerous, the American system of 2 weeks vacation a year and 10 holidays and whatever, a couple sick days. I think Europe has something figured out where like a longer break over the summer, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and that would make it a little more tenable to be in the office, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. If you could look forward to having August off, right? Or, taking 2 weeks off twice a year instead of 2 weeks off once a year.
Yeah. I find myself missing the unproductive parts about being in an office, I miss the BS, like the nonsense, like people always, like when we went fully remote, it was like, oh, there's no more water cooler talk. Like, this is great. Yes. And it is for productivity. But I also kind of miss it. Like, I used to sit right next to Matt, our sales guy. I love Matt. And
Matt's like a dog. I love Matt.
He's a complete dog. And I miss just making fun of him and seeing him every day and laughing with him. You know what I mean? And watching him come on his bike. Like, those are the things that I miss. But it's all the unproductive stuff.
That's why I did the stand-ups every day and told everybody to be on camera and to take a shower and be dressed and have a background. And I said, listen, we're going to have a sales stand-up, a programs team stand-up, and the media side stand-up, and just wake up and get on a call and at least say hi to everybody and, have like some rhythm to your day. Mm-hmm. And the turning it off is the hardest thing. I personally am having a hard time with that. That's why I'm going back to an office. I chose that for myself. Because I can't turn it off, I got my kids all day with me, and then at night I'm still working, but then I'm partially with the kids. I liked it much better when I got in a car, I drove to the office, I had 20 minutes of listening to a pod or doing a phone call. Boom, I'm at the office. I just grind for 8 hours, 9 hours, and then I come home, and that 20-minute decompress time on the way home, then I don't feel bad about sitting with the kids, turning the phone off, and maybe at 10 o'clock at night after I spent 3 or 4 hours with them, I can do more, but I liked that rhythm better now. I'm kind of over it. Now, with the exception of ski season, which I do not want to give up.
Yeah. And every Goldman Sachs banker is like, we got to be in the office until it's time for Montauk.
Yeah.
Then we don't.
Are you still using your personal phone number at work? At your startup in 2023? Stop! Such a common mistake founders make. But OpenPhone has totally rethought every detail of what a business phone should look like in 2023. OpenPhone makes it so easy to do this and so affordable that you have no excuse. And you really don't want your team using their personal phones for business. Why? Well, it could get creepy. People start texting people on your team. It could be that they leave your company and the salesperson has all of these text threads going with all your clients and they bring them to your competitor. Do you want to deal with this nonsense? You don't. I can tell you OpenPhone is amazing because we use it. Our sales team, our ops teams, we use it daily. We also started using OpenPhone for Angel Summit communications. It's rated #1 on G2 for customer satisfaction. And let me tell you, those G2 rankings, those are dogged battles. If you win that, you really have to be the best. Twist listeners love OpenPhone. My sales team uses it. Ops team uses it. Customer support uses it. And you know what's great about it? You can create a shared phone number like we did for the Angel Summit, with multiple employees being able to field those calls and text and keep it all sorted. It's affordable at just $13 per user per month, but Twist users are going to get 20% off that already ridiculously affordable price for 6 months at openphone.com/twist. And if you got an existing number, OpenPhone will port it over at no extra cost. Head to openphone.com/twist to start your free trial and get 20% off.
Anyway, so sorry, let me reel this back in. So
Yes.
I brought up CoreWeave because they also kind of fall into this category. So Nvidia invested in CoreWeave's $220 million Series B at a $2.1 billion valuation a couple of months ago. Yeah. But what's really interesting is that in that round, Nvidia's co-investors were Daniel Gross and Nat Friedman.
Those investors Pioneer Labs.
Pioneer Labs, Daniel Gross, Nat Friedman.
Daniel Gross, he's been on the pod, and I love Daniel's model for Pioneer Labs.
Yeah, he's amazing. And Nat Friedman, formerly the GitHub CEO.
Yeah.
So Daniel and Nat invest together, but I don't think they have a formal fund, but they co-invest very often.
Okay.
And these two were actually in the news. Well, they actually weren't really in the news. You saw this, but nobody really talked about it. They are now offering a 2,500 GPU cluster to their portfolio startups.
I thought this was a joke at first.
It's not. It's called Andromeda cluster. Yeah. So, at market prices.
So baller.
It's crazy, but
so baller.
Do you think that this had anything to do with their CoreWeave deal? Like, do you think that they got some kind of discount on CoreWeave GPUs and then they used it as leverage? You see with like the link I'm trying to make here?
CoreWeave is somehow associated with Pioneer Labs? And
no, Nat and Daniel invested in their $220 million Series B alongside Nvidia.
Again, back to no conflict, no interest. Here's what I learned, how things worked in the Valley. Everybody's kind of competing and collaborating. And like, if a deal comes up and I can get you into the Uber deal, or you can get me into the, DoorDash round, or DoorDash is competing with Uber, but, Cloud Kitchen, everything becomes like very murky and overlaps. And Y Combinator, perfect example. Sequoia and their reach, perfect example. Sequoia's an LP&R funds. Roelof and I are great friends for over a decade now. Sachs and Roelof work together at PayPal, right? So you see these like little, gangs form, right?
Yes.
And then now with All In, you have like the All In gang. And then, there's like 3 or 4 other podcasts that have come up with little clusters of, investors and entrepreneurs. I think my friend Dave Morin from Path.com, who I've always thought very highly of, he started like an All-In competitor, not competitor, but let's call it inspired by All-In. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty good. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's just like, okay, they have their opinion now over here. And then Pirate Wire guys did theirs, and Moment of Zen did theirs, and 3 Cartoon Avatars did theirs. These are all like little balkanized tribal things. Mm-hmm. And like Andreessen Horowitz doesn't like All In, right? Like he doesn't like me. He doesn't like Chamath. We've been super critical. Well, I mean, whatever. We said critical things, right? But I mean, he's good friends with Sachs and Friedberg, right? Mm-hmm. So you have this like very weird tension that can occur. Okay, is he blocking Chamath and myself at this moment in time or not, right? And so what I've learned is like enemies accumulate over time, and you don't want to miss opportunities. So, to this extent, you can squash beef. And, New York's got New York, Jersey's got Jersey, maybe somebody's got upstate New York,
South Jersey, Philly,
Rhode Island, Providence, a little different than Boston, but maybe they overlap. These families can kind of like do business together, but they could also get into spats, right? And that's what happens in tech. And then sometimes you got somebody who hits like a home run like this, like having their own cluster.
I just have to say, if
AI entrepreneur, what a baller move.
Oh my, if Nat and Daniel spun this CoreWeave deal and they had a little carve out for a couple extra GPUs on the side, and now they're using that as a way to get startups to basically pitch them for investment. I mean, bravo. Like that is,
it's like Boardwalk Empire. Like they're getting like some ships coming in from like with bourbon on them, but maybe they make it to New York. Maybe they don't.
That's my theory. So I don't know if that's the truth, but oh my God. Yeah. Like that's awesome.
Again, no conflict, no interest, 5 families, different, factions, all trying to, just get in the next deal. You just want to get in the next deal. And
it's just leverage, right?
It's leverage, right? Yeah. So if you have those 2,500 GPUs they have sitting there, and Daniel Gross is competing with Y Combinator, right? And he's trying to preempt Y Combinator by getting to startups before they do. I don't know. Y Combinator got 2,500 GPUs laying around. So if you're an AI entrepreneur, why would you go to YC when you could go to, if you need access to them? Now, everybody doesn't need access to them. It's probably 1 in 25 startups need access to GPUs directly like that. Mm-hmm. The other 24 can just use, hit an API and use ChatGPT-4's API or use Google's API or whatever. So it'll be abstracted that way as well. But I thought it was one of the more baller and innovate. I love innovation and venture. I love when people innovate on the 5 partners with the $300-400 million fund, making 2 investments a year, sitting on 12 boards. God bless Benchmark. Phil Gurley's my guy. Fred Wilson's my guy. Yeah. They're great at what they do. They're the GOATs. But then, sometimes the game changes and you get like a Steph Curry coming in and it's like, you know what? I'm going to stand 4 feet behind the 3-pointer and I'm going to shoot, 20 or 30 3-pointers a game and I'm going to hit 10 of them, 12 of them. So stop me. And Klay Thompson might hit 10 in a quarter. All of a sudden the game's changed. It's like, well, wait a second. This is a different style of basketball. Shaquille O'Neal, Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, they changed the game for a long time. You had to have somebody to stop those 3 players specifically, or else you were just not getting to the finals. And Jordan had to figure out, how do I get through Patrick Ewing? How do I get through Alonzo Mourning? How do I get through Duncan Robinson? These were, or Tim Duncan. No, Duncan Robinson.
Definitely not Duncan Robinson.
Well, whatever. I mean, there were, there were concerns of how do you get through some dominant.
No, Duncan Robinson is he's the white guy on the Heat now. Oh, not Tim Duncan. Or David, you combine Tim Duncan and David Robinson into Duncan
David
Robinson, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm getting older. Like these things all become one super team. Listen, I'm doing 5 podcasts a week, and I can tell you, dealing with video, it's 100 times harder than just doing audio. Why? When you do video, you got to put cuts in it to make it visually entertaining. And you got to have skills like producer Nick. If you want to level up your clip game, just check out Veed. My team started using it, and we are saving a ton of time. It's a web-based video editor that makes it easy for anyone to create great video content. Everybody can use it. Veed has every editing feature you're going to need. Auto subtitles, getting rid of the background noise. Check out this video. This is one of our video editors using Veed right now. Their auto subtitle tool literally doubles our clip efficiency. Hundreds of plug-and-play templates, so you don't start with a blank page. And they have a suite of AI tools that makes editing faster and easier. Veed just launched a new AI avatars version, So if you're making training videos or doing sales outreach or creating a presentation, you don't want to have to hire some talent. You can just choose from over 50 avatars to be the spokesperson for your brand. Here's what you do. You enter your script, you pick an avatar, and then you select from one of more than 75 languages. Think about that. And then you've got a natural photorealistic AI avatar in seconds. Think about how much time you're going to save. Here's your call to action. Start engaging your audience on all platforms, any and all, which is critically important. Head over to Veed.io and start creating professional quality videos in minutes. That's Veed.io to sign up today.
All right, you want to move on to Microsoft?
Yeah, I think this is really fascinating. I think I'm going to go in reverse order. Cue up the bundling issue, because we've talked about this on All In many times, and I saw this, and I'm sure it will come up on this week's All In with the return of the world's greatest moderator. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so we'll do the bad news first then.
Okay.
So Microsoft is facing an EU antitrust probe over how it bundles its Teams product for free into the greater Microsoft Office suite. The problem stems from a complaint that Slack issued in 2020 to the EU over Microsoft bundling its Teams product, as I just said. Teams was initially added as a free product to Office 365 back in 2017. And Brian, if you could pull up this chart, just look at what happened when I mean, this just shows you the scale of Microsoft's enterprise customers, right? So the purple line on the bottom is Slack's users, which if you zoomed in, you'd be like, oh, it's pretty good growth over time. And then you zoom out and you see what happens when Microsoft starts bundling Teams for free to, not saying that these are Microsoft users, but let's say Citibank, the NBA, like Volkswagen, giant enterprise customers, and growth just completely skyrockets. And
it's 20x, whatever Slack has or whatever.
And Chamath has mentioned in the past, obviously being an early Slack investor, I think they led this Series A with Mamoon over there, right? Yeah,
Mamoon, I think, led that deal. Yep, famously.
Once Teams did that, everybody on the board, he said, kind of saw this coming. And I think Slack actually made out great selling to Salesforce for almost $28 billion when it did, because Teams just came in and basically killed their growth, it looks like. I mean, we didn't get any numbers after 2020 because that's when Salesforce stopped reporting, or Slack stopped reporting and sold to Salesforce. But what do you think about this?
So I think this is what Lina Khan should be working on, is tactics, because she was put into the FTC because she was anti-big tech. She was anti, the power of these. And, that was a great way to get the job, I think, because it spoke to the Biden administration. They felt tech was like lording over them, too powerful, social networks, Trump getting into office, all this stuff was like very present in their minds. And politicians don't want to have to answer to Zuckerberg or previously to Jack at Twitter or YouTube. All of these things were very concerning to them. And the problem is, Lina Khan's premise, which sounds really interesting, is I want to preserve competition in the future. So we have to get to these monopolies before they become monopolies. We got to stop them. Now, have you ever seen the movie Minority Report? It's a little before your time. All right, that's your homework assignment, Minority Report. I need you to watch it because when you do the news read next week, I want to discuss it with you. Okay. There's a concept of a precog. And what precogs do is they can see into the future, the near future, and they know when somebody's going to commit a crime. And then they send the police out to arrest you before you do the crime. And this seems like, wow, society's safer and better. But it's also kind of like, well, wait a second, this is profoundly unfair. Where's free will? I'm not going to kill this person. I'm not going to rob this house. And it goes against all of our ideas about justice, right? And so she can't predict the future, but she wants to believe she can. And this resonated with people who were anti-big tech, which I would say, there's Republicans who are anti-big tech and they're, but the problem is the FTC executes laws. They don't create them. They're the umpire, not the league. The league has to create the rules. If you want to have hand checking or, whatever rules, zone defense, whatever, you got to have that in committee. You set the rules, all the teams get to adjust and they play the game on the field. She's got to call fouls and balls and strikes, not decide, how many runs are scored or how many bases there are. The cases that she's picked, she's just going after people because they're big tech. This going after Facebook over this tiny little, VR app when VR is not
within unlimited. Yep.
VR is not a thing.
And it was very silly. The argument was that Within Unlimited made a workout game that was sort of like Beat Saber, right? If you can't see me, but if you're listening, but I'm swiping.
We know Beat Saber. Yeah, you're a Jedi. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. And that, basically saying Meta having this app and Beat Saber would give them an unfair advantage in the VR space.
In the future, and there is no VR space.
Yeah.
Nobody we know played Beat Saber this week. Zero. I mean, if you played Beat Saber this week, you're a loser, period. Unless you're under the age of 12, right? You're just a complete, utter loser.
So all you 14-year-old Beat Saber players, you guys are nerds.
Playing baseball, go outside on your bicycle, play some basketball, do, I don't know, go to a dance, do something.
They lost that one, by the way.
And they lost. Of course, they're going to just keep losing these because they're being vindictive and it's a stupid strategy. There's a much easier strategy. Now, if you go through American antitrust law, price fixing is obvious. If you're Microsoft, if you're Google and you're Apple, you can't say, hey, let's set the price of our phones at $900 this year, $950 next year, and $1,050 the year after. We all agree on price fixing. So you can't do that. And people have done that. You also can't do market allocation like on The Sopranos, where like, okay, we get gambling in this town, you get gambling in this town. Here's the street. You can go on the other side of the street. You can't do market allocation kind of situations and divvy up a market. That's collusion, right? It's anti-competitive. You can't be a monopoly, and you can't do bid rigging. You can't do these kind of tactics. Bundling and predatory pricing are very interesting ones. Predatory pricing and bundling is what Microsoft's doing here. What does Teams cost? What does Teams cost?
Zero. It costs the cost of the Office suite. It's an add-in.
It's bundled.
Yeah,
it's bundled. And so there's a very simple solution for her here, is to look at instances like that, where people are doing this kind of market allocation. You could argue what Apple does with their App Store is like they've allocated that only they can sell in this geolocation, i.e. iOS. And just say, listen, you can't do that. You have a monopoly on these phones. You're in a duopoly. So in the case of a duopoly, where there's two players who own 90% of the market, we want you to have more interoperability and we want more open platforms. So there should be other app stores on iOS. Now, you can just saber rattle and say, listen, I'm Lina Khan, I'm the FTC. We're preparing a case against you, Apple. You have 6 months to allow Amazon to have a digital store, Microsoft to have a digital store, and the Google Play Store to exist on Apple, and they have to do the same. And you can't make iMessage closed. There should be interoperability. And they'll say like, well, we can fight that. You can fight it. But this is what we're asking. Since you have a monopolistic position, we're asking you to be more interoperable. Remember in the early days of iOS, they wouldn't let you have like a VLC, a video player. They wouldn't let you have the Dolphin browser or Chrome browser. I don't
remember this.
In the early days, they wouldn't let you use a third-party browser. They wouldn't let you use a third-party media player. Jobs really wanted to own those. And so they would block you installing that. And then Microsoft, of course, got in trouble for bundling, where they put, and that was the massive Microsoft case, that massive antitrust case in the 90s, where they put the Internet Explorer, the Edge browser, to try to kill Netscape. And so if you make it free, you used to buy Netscape. Shout out Mark Andreessen. Come on the pod anytime. They used to buy Netscape for $50 a year. You would go buy it, and then they would like Netscape Navigator 4.0 would come out, 5.0 would come out. You give them $50, $99. You would go to CompUSA and you would buy package software, bring it home, put a CD in, and install the new browser. And they were like, yeah, it's in the operating system now. So that's a much simpler execution, I think, and it's actually better for consumers. Consumers there's no consumer harm if Microsoft buys Activision, or Microsoft releases Teams. But there is harm when they do it for free, or if they said Activision is only going to have their games on Xbox for the first 2 years, and then it goes to PlayStation or PC. And they already conceded that they wouldn't do that, correct? So I think we can pivot to the next story.
They did, yeah. Actually, this story has a complete masterstroke that I just found out this morning by Satya Nadella. Another masterstroke by Satya Nadella.
He's a killer.
I mean, wait till I tee this up for you. You're going to lose your mind. All right. Okay. So Tuesday morning, a federal judge denied the FTC's attempt to delay Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, which can happen as soon as this month now. So just a quick timeline on the acquisition. It was announced first in January 2022. Microsoft announced they were going to acquire Activision Blizzard for $70 billion. This would have been Microsoft's largest acquisition ever, and it would also be the largest gaming acquisition ever. December 2022, almost a year later, the FTC issues a formal complaint announcing its intent to try and block the deal. And one of the main reasons for the complaint, one of their main arguments, was that the probability of Microsoft making Activision properties like Call of Duty or World of Warcraft Xbox exclusives would hurt competition and would hurt consumers. So the UK and the EU both followed the FTC in reviewing this deal. In April 2023, the UK actually formally blocked the deal, which is wild. In May 2023, the EU approved the deal, so they went the opposite direction. Yep. And then last month, the FTC sued Microsoft, asking a federal court to postpone the deal closing by issuing a restraining order. So fast forward to July 11th, which is today, Tuesday, Microsoft wins, the FTC loses. Microsoft can now close the deal as soon as this month. And basically the judge ruled that the FTC failed to show that this was going to result in harm. And to top it
Correct
off,
decision.
yeah, just an hour before we went live today, Reuters reported that the UK is now open to looking at the deal again and changing its decision.
Yeah. Perfect. I mean, it is an obvious decision. And this is where you just put conditions. And if that's what should be happening here is conversations with the major players and saying, hey, we could take action here. We can slow this down. We can give you a speeding ticket. We might win. We might have a 20% chance of winning. We might have a 50% chance of winning. Why don't we just both agree on what's in the best interest of consumers here? If Call of Duty is available to, I think Activision's biggest title is Call of Duty.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody gets Call of Duty at the same time, we're good. We're good. And if the games are the same across all platforms, we're good. And if it's interoperable, so PlayStation and Xbox, and PC gamers can all play each other, great. Or you have to hit 4 of the 5 major platforms in the first year. You can come up with some very basic, things that preserve consumer choice, and you're fine. This is why Lina Khan, sorry to say it, Lina, I know that you're not pleased with my assessment of your tenure. I think you've done a bad job of really picking your fights. The job of the FTC is to pick your battles. And just being anti-tech is not picking your battles. Look at
that was kind of her strategy too, right? She wanted to go spray and pray. She was like, we shouldn't just pick battles that we think we're going to win. We should go for a bunch of different things.
Yeah. I mean, people who are, bringing cases, I've heard Preet Bharara say this a bunch of times, like, if you're going to bring a case, you want to be sure that you have a really good chance of winning, but it doesn't have to be 100%. You like to be 90% or 100%, but sometimes you go with something that's 70 or 80%. I just think she came out and it's just like saying no to everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense. And
does
I
this
think
undermine the credibility of the FTC, you think?
I think it feels very partisan and it feels vindictive, and it doesn't feel like it has anything to do with consumers. So I think she wants to have a bigger role than what the FTC is supposed to do. And so I think her ambition as a young person who's brilliant, clearly she's a brilliant young person. I think she's in her 30s.
Yes.
I mean, the youngest ever. Mm-hmm. So sometimes brilliant young people want to, make a name for themselves. But this is not the way to do it. If you wanted that, you should be a senator and, make laws and change the laws. That would be a better use of her time, So yeah, she's 34, I think, at this point. So she was 32 maybe when she got in. She's 2 years into this.
Yeah, June 2021, she was sworn in, I believe.
Anyway, she's not going to make it to a second term, I don't think. I think somebody else needs to, or she needs to change her tactics immediately. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking my book here. For me as an early stage investor, just so you know, it's better for me that big companies, that companies don't get acquired in some cases and they go bigger. If Uber had sold at $5 or $10 billion to Amazon, that would be terrible for me. It wouldn't be worth 80 or 90 billion, which it is. I wouldn't have gotten the last 20x out of it, 15x. So for venture capitalists and investors in technology companies, you kind of want them to go long and stay independent longer because that's how true value is created. So, but you also want there to be an exit ramp for companies. So if they don't, like this Beat Saber company kind of stuff, like for those companies, if they're not going to be platforms and they're not going to be huge, yeah, it's great to have an exit somewhere where they can have a nice safe landing. They also had done that thing with the Giphy keyboard or something. I can't remember that case, but the FTC...
I think that was a UK deal.
Is that UK? Yeah, they forced them to sell it or something. Yeah. And I think that predated her. But this is just another perfect example of like, are we just trying to be vindictive because Zuckerberg, didn't defend democracy against Trump? And that's the problem we talk about on All In all the time is trust in experts, trust in institutions. And you nailed it. Like, do you feel like Lina Khan is playing referee or umpire, or is she Tim Donaghy, and she's shaving coins?
She's wearing the jersey of the other team underneath the referee shirt.
Exactly. Yeah. And it kind of feels like she's doing Biden's bidding, who gave her the job. Which,
all right. So do you want to hear about Satya's Jedi mind trick?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. So obviously Microsoft owns Xbox. Xbox is one of 3 major console makers, right? There's Xbox, Sony makes PlayStation, and Nintendo makes the Switch.
Yeah.
Activision makes Call of Duty, which is one of the most popular games in the world. Warzone, which is like an offshoot Call of Duty game, is a popular free-to-play game. It's kind of like the Call of Duty version of Fortnite.
Got it.
And it has 52.5 million monthly active players via activeplayer.io, with daily active players ranging between 1 and 3 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I know this. I kind of feel like this is accurate because my friends love playing Warzone. Like grown men, like 27, 28-year-old grown men are like on it every night, like they're in middle school again.
Those are kind of teenagers in today's world, but sure.
Basically, yeah. So one of the FTC's big arguments, again, as we mentioned before, was that Microsoft would take Call of Duty, make it an Xbox exclusive, which would suck for consumers, and they would just cut them off. But as part of the lawsuit, both Xbox head Phil Spencer and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella both said under oath that they would not make Call of Duty an Xbox exclusive, under oath.
Yeah.
And the judge's decision also quoted Phil Spencer, who noted that Nintendo and PlayStation actually have way more console exclusive games than Xbox does in the first place.
Yeah.
So he's basically saying, we don't even do that. But here is the brilliant move by Satya Nadella. This is so awesome. So the main Call of Duty games have never been available on Nintendo. And in February of this year, Microsoft announced that if the acquisition was approved, they would bring the main Call of Duty games to Nintendo by signing a 10-year deal with them.
Perfect.
So I'm
going to go above and beyond.
Not only will Call of Duty not go exclusive, it's going to be available for like millions and millions and millions of more people.
Yes, tens of millions. Yes. So basically,
what is
the opposite.
Even the FTC's argument anymore? Like
the FTC's argument is Microsoft is too big. That's all. Big tech is too big. They have more power than politicians. Same thing with Bitcoin. Why do you think and I said this, till I was blue in the face, like governments are not giving up their control of fiat currency. Sorry, it's not happening. And you're going to have to play by the SEC's rules, and you're not replacing fiat. And when you said, hey, we're here to disrupt fiat, guess what? The government believed you, and you were credible. It was a credible threat that crypto could replace fiat. Mm-hmm. That's why it's banned in, a lot of countries, because they don't want to give up command and control. Okay. Yeah. Anything else on the docket?
To hit up Lina Khan's other lawsuit actions right now. Ongoing case against Meta over the Instagram and WhatsApp acquisitions. She inherited that one from the previous administration. FTC is expected to lose that one. She already lost.
If you can't, there's got to be some statute of limitations here.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I mean, that's a crazy one. You're going to go back and undo the YouTube acquisition. It's not fair to shareholders. It's not fair to the employees. It's not fair to customers. It makes no sense.
Mm-hmm. They, FTC versus Illumina. Illumina is a biotech company and who acquired this company Grail, who actually you just sent us the link to yesterday to invite the founder on for $7.1 billion in 2021. That was dismissed in court in September 2022. So they technically lost. But in April of this year, they ordered Illumina to divest Grail again, and they intend to appeal, and they'll probably win. But that's technically ongoing. And then just a couple months ago, or last month, the FTC sued Amazon for allegedly misleading consumers about how they cancel their Prime memberships.
Okay.
And the quote for the complaint, Amazon used manipulative, coercive, or deceptive dark patterns. There it is. To trick consumers into.
This I like.
Yeah.
This I like. Dark patterns are now illegal in California. However you sign up for a service, you have to be able to unsubscribe from that service. So when you try to unsubscribe from the Wall Street Journal, they're like, hey, call us. Mm-hmm. And they put you on hold, and they try to talk you out of it. No. If you can take my credit card on the web, you can take my unsubscribe. I had this happen with Tonal, which I love. Mm-hmm. My gym got flooded. I tried to pause my Tonal membership, and they made me jump through so many hoops. And I love Tonal, and I emailed the CEO. He didn't get back to me. And I'm like, why can't I go into the interface and hit pause on my membership? If I'm going to be gone for 2 months in the summer, I should be able to pause it. Why should I pay $100, $50 a month, or whatever it is, and not use it? It's not fair.
It's the silliest thing of all time.
Well, this is where I think the FTC could do great work. They should make a list of the top 100 dark patterns, and then they should just go down the list and just file. That's in consumers' best interest. That's where you point the gun, Lina.
Yeah. I do think it's funny, though, that she's basically going after like one of the most beloved, like Amazon Prime. Everybody has it. Everybody loves it.
I think she's going to go after ice cream next.
Right. Yeah.
Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah.
It's just too good.
Right. It's ridiculous.
Too creamy.
But we should note she has had some wins. The FTC recovered $60 million in lost wages for Amazon delivery drivers under Lina Khan, which is good. Okay. And in one of the biggest settlements in FTC history, Epic Games paid a $520 million fine for tricking young gamers into making unintended purchases, which violated COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So she has had a couple of wins.
Yeah. I think she'll have wins when she goes after the actual cases of people breaking the law and going after specifically anti-competitive tactics that are in the law. And if you want to change the laws, you could inform, the other branches of government that this is how you think laws should change. And then let elected officials work on that. But it's not her job to change the laws and the rules of the game. It's her job to call balls and strikes. And when she does that, she's going to have great success. When she tries to pick who wins the game or tries to push the game to a 6 or 7 game series or whatever, it's just so obvious that this is just Biden administration, anti-tech, pro-union nonsense. Just like they won't invite Elon or whatever to the EV summit when he's shipping, 250,000 cars a quarter and dwarfing everybody. You wouldn't invite him to a summit.
And allowing other people to charge on the Tesla,
Yes. It turns out that in most cases, it's in a business's best interest to not be a monopoly and to have interoperability because things grow and you don't have this fermenting competitive environment. And Tesla's you want to use our stations? Go ahead. Now Ford and GM, whoever's done these agreements, is well, now why would they even build stations?
No reason.
But now if they didn't let them, then they would all get together and build a consortium against Tesla. So the best thing to do is to just say, yeah, if you want to use them, this is the price, and this is we'll charge the same price that they charge Tesla people. They're not giving Tesla people a discount.
Yeah.
Versus the Ford and GM people, which I thought was a masterstroke, right? All right, everybody, that's a full show for you today. All In Summit is basically sold out. I think there's 25 or 50 VIP tickets left. Sorry we couldn't accommodate everybody. We will be releasing all the videos. Nick will be editing all of those. If you want to get one of the remaining VIP tickets, just type in All In Summit and buy it now, please. I don't have extras. I don't have free tickets except for our LPs. We each get 25 free tickets. I think my wife's taken a handful of those for family members, and the rest are going to LPs and Launch Fund 4. So go ahead and check that out. Do a search for All In Summit if you want to get those, and follow the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thisweekend, and subscribe and ring the bell. I'm going to try to do some live streams this summer. All right, we'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye.